Undoubtedly, MotoGP is the epitome, the mecca and the pinnacle of motorcycle racing, and quite rightly they have a licensed game to go with it. Year upon year it has fallen upon Milestone to use this license and produce a title which will capture your heart, fuel it with adrenaline, overload your mind and blow your eyeballs out the back of your head. And year upon year they have failed to do just that. So, after 2016's much improved Ride 2 release, which showed considerable improvement across the board, will Milestone finally set the track on fire? Welcome to Sim UK. MotoGP 17 was released earlier today and I wanted to get a first look review out to you guys quickly so that you can decide early on if you want to spend your hard-earned money on yet another Milestone rendition of the MotoGP series. I mentioned in the introduction about the dramatic advancement Ride 2 had taken in 2016. I didn't even mention the fact that they had swapped to Unreal Engine 4 for the most recently released MXGP series. So, like me, I bet you're all wondering if MotoGP 17 has been able to utilise and implement some of that improvement, and yes, in some areas it has, but underneath it seems almost identical to all that have been before. There are a few improvements that are worth mentioning though. Most noticeably, the improvement with FPS. For a sport which averages approximately 130 miles per hour in close quarters hand-to-hand battle, Milestone have repeatedly failed to deliver something that comes anywhere close to a solid 60 FPS, but now they have. MotoGP 17 is guaranteed to run at 60 FPS, just so long as you meet their advertised minimum specs, and on my system it was holding a solid 100 FPS even whilst I was recording. So this is much more stable in that sense, as was Ride 2. And if I were going to sum this up in a single sentence, then it would be this. MotoGP has used the exact same engine it always has, and that engine appears to have been tweaked to match whatever the settings that they used for Ride 2. I say this because the game handles and feels almost exactly like Ride 2, which is a good thing, but also a massive disappointment. Why Milestone think that it's okay to continue to churn out these reproduced titles with the same identical level of quality, but without in any way attempting to improve on any of the user's concerns, requests or negative aspects of the previous title, makes me so angry that I could literally explode. I'm being a little bit unfair because there have been some improvements. The UI, it does seem a little better, snappier and better laid out, although the options that I have seen so far are very, very limited and incredibly basic. There is still no configuration tool to cater for individual controllers, indeed no support at all for all but the very mainstream of devices. Heavens forbid you don't have an Xbox or PS4 controller to use. This ultimately leads to the next complaint, which I, and no doubt others, have raised for the entire lifetime of MotoGP releases. There is not enough finesse built into the controls. The limited angles permitted mean that you increment your lean in only one of, 5 angles let's say, and that's simply not enough. It's almost impossible to feel like you're leaning in and then rolling out, because the controller is fixed to these incremental steps all the time. This sharp angle by angle approach is probably very useful in a chicane, but for finer adjustments whilst approaching or already in a corner, it is just simply horrendous. There have been a few moments today where this game has looked the business, but genuinely so far, and don't forget this is my first look, at no point have I really felt like I'm actually there, actually on the bike racing against the very best of the very best. This brings me to my next issue, and yeah, there are going to be a few. The AI, is it any better? No, of course it isn't, because they have done nothing to make the AI riders any more realistic. It's exactly like playing a racing game at the arcades back in the 80s or the 90s. There's no individuality, no difference in riding style, and they all look the same. Plus, they all ride the same, and they even seem to make the same mistakes on the same corners on every single lap. It's just boring as hell, and totally unrealistic. This kind of AI behaviour is simply not what we see on the MotoGP circuit. It's all about taking it to the limit and then clinging on as you continuously dip your toe over the edge. It's about pressuring your opponent and capitalising on their minutest mistakes. It's about taking calculated risks when the stakes are at their absolute highest. MotoGP 17 has absolutely none of that. Bike physics are poor, still poor, really terribly poor, and hugely unrealistic, with high-speed collisions and off-the-track incidents simply resolving themselves instantly with a little bit of a backside wiggle and not even requiring an acknowledged hand gesture. This aspect of Milestone's games has just not moved on or improved in a single bit year upon year. Crashes still seem to occur in one of two places. This involves being hit by AI or braking too hard for too long into a corner. And the ragdoll effect is pretty much identical to that of all the previous MotoGP titles. Race starts, however, are much harder now and demand more from you, making the race starts more important. No, they're not. No, they're not harder at all. It's max throttle, wait for the game to engage your clutch and then overtake all the stupid AI immediately in front of you, and finally brace for impact because those same stupid AI idiots are going to slam into your backside on turn 1. Nothing's changed. The audio is a little bit better, maybe, but it is still a long way from anything remotely resembling good. There is little more to discuss on this point. It's the same problem as with all the previous versions, and to be honest, the replays are also dull, with the camera positioned so badly, you simply had a better view of the entire race whilst you were in the race. Now so far guys, this is my first look, and whilst I don't intend or expect to have my opinion changed, I am going to keep playing this game, maybe even run a career and see how the game evolves. Perhaps as the bikes improve, the quality of the game will too. Don't forget, there are still the player and manager career elements. I'm not really expecting anything remotely exciting there, but I will be looking into that and seeing if it's any good at all. I came into this review expecting not to like MotoGP 17, and I fully expected to once again lose respect for Milestone and their same old money-grabbing business model that they seem to like so much. I don't completely hate the game, although I have lost some respect for Milestone once again, because instead of capitalising on Ride 2's positive feedback and improving upon it, in essence moving the title forwards, they have instead moved sideways. If you want to see how little effort Milestone have put into improving this title, just take a look at their About This Game section on Steam. They simply could not be bothered. So maybe if you have Ride 2 or a previous version of MotoGP, you should just simply consider sticking with that and hope, like me, that a decent company who actually care about their game take over the license for MotoGP next year. I don't think there's much chance of that, but we can hope, guys. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this review. Remember, hit that like button if you enjoyed this review. It's so important to me. And until next time, take care of yourselves. Goodbye for now.